5. Welcome, anyone and everyone, no one at this point, to our. I guess this would be about the fifth actual Guild of Geely D&D session. We didn't have too many people today. In fact, we only have one, which is Robert. We're going to basically just play with one person. I had a couple of things thought out that I think he's going to have fun with. But yeah, let's go ahead and start. So at this point, Robert, right now, well, Rissian doesn't really know where he is. His head is covered by something, and he seems to be bound against or bound to a pole, and he's standing up against it. But it seems that any way he tries, he can't really get, I guess, away from it. Like the pole is going up from the ceiling to the floor, and he's kind of tied, hands behind back around it.
All right.
Go ahead.
Rissian sort of yells out, "Hello, anyone out there?"
And you kind of hear some grumbling, and you hear someone kind of down from what sounds like a hallway just kind of go, "Shut up! Shut your fucking mouth!" And then kind of quiets down again, and you hear a little bit more grumbling, but that's about it.
All right. And Rissian sort of, let's see.
And I guess you would have yet to know if you're being kept here under duress. Like you were basically just at a tavern, kind of traveling through, hadn't had any jobs in a while, and then kind of like you don't really remember how the night went, and you've woken up here, basically.
So Rissian sort of tries to think back to that previous night and tries to remember if there's who exactly he spoke to, or if he can't remember anyone at all.
Well, one guy did buy a round of drinks for the bar. You partook. It didn't seem really strange, but that's really the only thing that could have been something that wasn't under your control, if that makes sense.
Okay. So then he listens for any sounds that can provide clues to where he is.
Okay. At this point, you can kind of hear some like dripping, and it does echo pretty far, so it does sound like you're in some kind of dungeon type place. You do hear steps kind of getting louder and softer as they go. It seems like someone's kind of patrolling down this hallway you seem to be at least in direct connection with, if not in the hallway. And there are, I guess, the only other sounds you can really hear is just rustling towards the end where you heard the guy tell you to shut your fucking mouth, basically, or Rissian, I should say. So it sounds like you're really in someone's dungeon, if not a city dungeon or town dungeon.
So Rissian sort of calls out for who's ever walking down the hallway.
Okay, so that person hasn't made much like vocal noise, but they seem to be kind of walking towards your direction, slower and slower as they get there. But he kind of peeks his head by what seems like a wall or a corner, because you could hear him much more clearly as soon as he spoke. What you can hear it much clearer than his steps. Like there's less echo; it's more direct towards you. So he basically says, "You best keep quiet. There's not much I can do for you. You're going to be down here for a while, but you best not worry either, because the more you do and the more you fuss, the worse it's going to be for you." And he kind of starts walking away at this point, because he's kind of like, he's just trying to keep on his rounds. Like he doesn't sound like someone you could totally distrust, basically, because that actually sounded like good advice.
And so Rissian sort of then decides to wait it out then and see and waits for someone to the next person who comes into the cell.
Okay. Um, you do kind of hear that there's someone near you in I guess in your near vicinity. They haven't made much noise, but it kind of seems like their breathing kind of sounds like they're asleep. Uh, but like any noise you make, it kind of makes it seem like you're in a small kind of offshoot room that almost might have been originally used for like a small storage thing with a couple of support posts that they have you attached to, basically. Let's see.
How what's the nature of the rope that's tying me to the or racing to the pole?
Uh, it is it's regular rope. It's tied pretty moderately. It's not like the best tie job ever, but it seems like it's not like they were trying to, intentionally let you go or anything like that. They tied it with the intention of keeping you there. It just may be, as a rogue, you may have the skill to break free.
All right.
Escape
Well, would that
artist,
be the use rope skill or?
I think escape artist technically, but let's see. Yeah, I would say escape artist. Rope use would, I mean, to know the knot. Yeah, if it were like a crazy knot, I might make you make a rope use check just for the knowledge of it. Like if you've used ropes enough or you haven't have enough rope use, like you would be able to suss it out. But it's not like that crazy of a knot. So if you wanted to use,
Okay, so I'm going to use escape artist to try and I either undo the knot either by breaking or by trying to pull on the end of the rope.
okay, escape artist itself is a dex check. If you were going to make a strength check on it, that's also possible. But your escape artist is at 9. It looks like. I guess if the okay, so yeah, if you want to go ahead and make that roll. Oh, absolutely. So you basically find a nice little like kind of a knob of the knot kind of in between your wrists, and you kind of push it down with your thumb, and you realize that that was basically what was holding the main lead in place, and your hands just kind of come apart, and you realize it was just like a wrap job with kind of a rudimentary knot put in the center, and yeah, so you are free from it.
Okay, and then yeah, so I remove the bag from my head and look around at my surroundings, see where I am.
Okay. Well, you do notice that kind of your auditory or aural senses, I should say, were correct. You were in a smaller room, and you basically have only one other person in the room that seems to be kind of sitting there, uh, slumped down, like sitting as best they can and as comfortable as they could be, but they're just slumped forward and seems like they're still sleeping. But they also have a bag over their head and such.
So so I go over and remove the bag from his head as well, and wake him up,
Okay.
like jostle him around.
Okay, so as soon as you remove the bag from his head, you realize it's a dead guy, and it was just air escaping from him. And he's very bloated, so it looks like he has drowned. But it's very recent. So it looks like they put you both down here, and they might have forcefully drowned him before putting him down here, just to like leave him to rot.
Okay, I search his body for anything useful.
Okay, you actually most peculiar thing, you actually find a bag of 30 gold on him and nothing more.
Okay. I guess I how much have they taken my equipment? Have they taken Rician's equipment or?
Well, you don't have any weapons on you. You are still wearing like your leather armor, all that stuff, and you still have all your same clothes. It's like you are you without your weapons. Like
Okay.
the straps that would even keep your holsters there and such are still there, but the things that you would need to have your weapons on you or your weapons as well are gone. So your gauntlet is actually taken off, I guess I should say.
Yeah. Um,
But it is presumable that it is at least in the vicinity. I don't think you would have gone to, been drugged or anything like that, or knocked out magically and taken to a place without them also taking your weapons there, unless it was someone extremely devious.
okay, so presuming that there's sort I there's some sort of like bars or something on the front in the front of this um small the small storage area. I search for like some sort of like rock or stone that I could use to
So
um
it is a healthy assumption that there would be bars, yet there are no bars. There's a small opening. No, no, just a small opening. Not really anything like. It's like a doorway. I don't know why I'm confused about saying that, but it's just a doorway. There's just a
okay.
doorway there.
So then Rissian this cozies up in a corner right be right beside the doorway, ready to um ready to just use his hands to um go after whoever opens the door next.
Okay. Well, you do kind of hear just the same walking, kind of back to the same pace, the same guy patrolling, and the same, sort of rustling that you hear down the hallway. There's not too much actually changing about that. No one so far has actually heard you, or at least they're not reacting to you or anything you've done so far. So no one's actually walking by you because you're far enough down in this corridor that they don't have to like go all the way to the end to see anything going on, or at least notice any sounds or any changes with things that have gone on. Like,
And there's no windows or anything like that.
no, very dank dungeon. You do notice that there are. Now, here's the weird thing. It is. You do notice a very kind of dank stench. It's not really like even a stench. It's just so humid that you can smell any dust or dirt that's picked up into the humidity of the air. So it's kind of like a bitter, sour, kind of backlay to any smells that you have. And you notice that at the sides of the doorway, as soon as you kind of poke your head around, is that the torches are, you shouldn't say torches, the things that are keeping any light are a kind of like a glowing fungus or a mushroom that seems to be tall and almost looks a little bit like Bob Barker's microphone. And because very thin, very small top, but the swordsman, I guess, that you can see walking back and forth in his patrol is also holding one of those. These don't create a great amount of light, but it's enough that if someone were within 10 feet, they could see you. Like, it creates a little bit above low light, basically.
Okay. I don't suppose. No, those are probably attached to the wall. So, um,
They seem so. Here's the if you notice there are, or you do notice that they seem to be like growing from the wall, but in very specific places, as if someone put like a spore there and grew the thing, basically. So attached, yes, but but it looks like they can be, ripped away from the wall and used for a short amount of time. I haven't really thought of the amount of time, but let's say like a half hour before they die.
okay. So I guess I try the door.
Okay, so you're just gonna kind of like step out through and see what you can do.
Yeah.
Okay. As you do that, you notice that the guy is actually walking away from you, and luckily he had just made his turn. I'm kind of being nice with that, but he luckily had just made his turn. So as you make your good look down the hallway, you notice that it's two rows of five, like it's a kind of a straight shot down the hallway, and there are five doorways on each side. So this seems like almost like a reappropriated basement, basically. So
Okay. And is there where's sort of the nearest doorway then?
The nearest doorway is actually directly opposite on the other side of the hallway to you, and it seems that each doorway, it looks like someone was doing Minecraft. How do I want to put it? Fan digging, I think it's called. I can't remember. It's basically where you go and you basically dig. You do giant tunnels far enough so that they are only far apart, enough apart so you could detect any minerals there without having to dig up everything. But it's like cuts down like to a third of the digging you'd have to do. But the so it's basically looks like it's like 10 feet. Each 10 feet there is a new little doorway, and they are directly opposed to each other on each side of the hallway. Like a
Okay,
little.
so I go over across then to the doorway on the other side of the, like exactly opposite to where the cell was.
Okay. Uh, in that, you do see a few stacked boxes in there, or crates. I guess what could pass for a crate. Down here, it's just a small kind of shittily built box that you could technically reach into. It's just at least holding the stuff in the same place without letting it fly everywhere. But there's a few of them stacked up on top of each other, and it seems like there might be some useful stuff, but it seems to be mostly like smoother stones and little just like junk or trinkets and things like that.
Okay, well, I search for either some sort of for a stone big enough to lob.
To lob? Okay, so like softball size or bigger or smaller?
Bigger, just sort of enough to throw at the throw at the guard or the person patrolling, and possibly knock him out.
Okay. All right. And if when you go kind of through, you do see a few of those, there's probably three that could suit that need if you wanted to use them.
Or better, is there some like, or is there like are there also sort of like some basic weapons like or blades in there as well among the trinkets?
So there's some silverware, I guess you could say, or flatware that seems to be made of pretty hardy stone. Kind of looks like the same stone that's part of the walls, so it looks like whoever was out here. I mean, it's a good clue to think that whoever was out here is actually kind of a little bit out of the off the grid, but it seems as if there are a lot of flatware. So you see like forks and like a knife or two, but the knives don't. I mean, like they would probably be just as useful as the forks in a stealthy murder operation, if you know what I mean.
Okay, well then I guess the old knockout weapon will have to do. I pick up one of the stones and check the position of the guard.
Okay. The guard is seems to be right at the end of the hallway and is kind of doing a quick stop and starting his turn as he kind of goes back. He's not going to see you from that far away. That's about 60 feet, and he would need to be within 15 or so feet to be able to see you. Like, you could probably attribute the lack of actual light down here to the fact that they're kind of living off whatever grid and not really using fire or burning fuels to make anything happen.
Okay, well I wait till he has come back and turned and gone just a little bit farther so that he um, doesn't sense my presence, and then I lob the stone at the back of his head in an attempt to knock him out.
Okay. And okay. So I guess he'll technically be completely unawares, so that makes him flat-footed. And okay, and I gotta pull up your decks really quick and stuff. I have everything right in front of me. Uh, okay. Okay. Go ahead and once he made, or when you're ready, go ahead and we'll assume that that's exactly like when he's about 5 feet away from when he made his turn, which ends up being about 15 feet away from you.
Okay. Roll initiative for that.
No, because you're making this out of combat, so it's just an
Okay.
action right away. Like no one else is aware, so there's no need to compete with initiatives.
Okay, so just use the so
Yeah,
just use dexterity then.
roll with your dex. Oh, very nice. So you basically rear back and huck the rock. It takes a nice, very clean arc, not very acute, nice and obtuse, just almost a straight line to his right to like, right under the back of, I guess you could say the like back corner of this skull. So it kind of hits him right in the tendon there and pushes his head down, and you can see a lot of blood coming from the back of it, or at least you can hear it. And so he is on the ground, hasn't made any sound yet, but he could still be alive and just knocked out. But
Okay, so then
mhm.
um I actually so I loot the body and then I drag it back to the first cell um where I put the bag over his head and then attempt to tie him to the pole again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go for it. So I'd say do a strength check because he seems to be a pretty burly dude, and then just to be able to like get a good grip on him because a knocked out person technically still is dead weight,
Yeah.
and then oh, fantastic! Yeah, you basically just like grab one of his ankles and then just like hold it above your shoulder, the same shoulder, and just kind of like drag his head basically against the ground. You're just kind of like hulking him there, and so, but what?
And then do I need to use rope for the
Uh,
knot or
yes, actually, I was going to say go ahead and do use rope, which is a 3 plus 5. So that's an 8. I'd say you tie basically the same knot they did, and kind of just a nice little like uh, knuckle of a knot that kind of holds against two loops. So basically, you've done a nice little thing. It's like a Chinese finger trap, but not a great like knot for holding someone there. But this guy's pretty foobarred. So
yeah. So I check his body, see if I can't find anything on it.
there's still the dropped like long Bob Barker glowy mushroom in the hallway as well as his sword.
Okay, so I grab his sword.
Okay, and so yeah, he didn't have anything on him. He's basically on guard duty, so they don't want to give you too much, basically. So okay, so you have his sword. It's a very it's a broadsword basically, but it's a short broadsword, so it seems as if like it's more meant to bash a little bit more than it is to slice.
Okay.
It's kind of like a
Um,
quick bash you in the face weapon sort of thing, but bash you with a sharp thing.
so then I sneak through that. So then I go out and I sneak along that passage,
Hmm.
um, in trying to basically remain as inconspicuous as possible on seeing where it goes.
Okay. We'll go ahead and make a move silently check.
All right. Um,
And I'd actually say make 2 more after that because you're going to have to pass 2 rows of doors that you may alert someone who may technically be your ally but just be frightened or doesn't care or would rather just rat you out. So I'd say,
okay. Um, all right.
is that a 1? I think
Yeah.
we just had a botch. I think it's our first player botch. So,
No, we've had a few botches, but
okay. Well, I mean, I feel like not in this scenario. Like, yes, attacks and
oh,
stuff, but in a
oh
good
yeah.
critical moment. Okay, so here's something that I actually haven't really been able to do in a while. I'm going to roll a D100, and we're going to, on that, basically find out what's happening to your character. So, the lower the number is, technically, the worse off it is. Realistically, like a 1, another 1 would be instant death. I I truly don't want that to happen.
Okay.
Did it roll? Oh, come on, where's the text? 30.
30.
Okay. So you so you basically like trip over a rock that's just in the room, and it seems to be just that it was something that wasn't ground down in the making of this. You hit the ground pretty damn hard, and you actually take 2 points of damage from this. And you throw the sword about 15 feet in front of you just because you were like making a good motion forward and just getting your hands out in front of you. You really couldn't hold on to a sword. So it just like clings around like you were literally trying to like hit a mouse like 6 feet away from you.
Okay, well, I quickly retrieve the sword then, and
So make a tumble check.
okay. That would be. Oh well, at least my tumble is 13.
There you go. So 13 on tumble plus 10.
Or
Yeah.
23.
So
23.
So
Oh.
you do this really, sweet like breakdancing move after that. You're like, oh, and then you do a sweet breakdancing move and kind of like lay on your side for a second, all nonchalant, and then grab your sword and stand up. You're like, okay, all right, I'm good again.
All right.
And
So then,
you're also about one door, like you are in the space between the second and first doorway, according to the terminus, and not the terminus, I guess the entrance of the hallway.
and then how close is the guy who was yelling at me?
That technically would be about 20 feet right now.
Okay, so I'll do another move silently check.
Okay,
Hopefully
so
this one.
you may need to move silently into somewhere. What's your plus what? Plus 9? Okay.
Plus
So
9.
at a 12,
So
at a 12, you move silently, okay, but there is someone on their way. So which way are you moving silently?
I
They didn't
move
not,
into a cell.
Okay. So is it going to be in the first row or the second row?
The first row is closest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then that.
Okay. So left or right? Another question.
Left.
Okay. So as you move into the left, you do notice that there is someone in there. They don't seem to be asleep, but they're also not making any noise. But they do kind of like bag on head look at you, and kind of like kind of make like a small short hum, like as if they don't, they're expecting someone in to come and beat the shit out of them. So they're a little bit worried.
Okay. Well, I go over and sort. No, I don't want to make any noise. I just sort of hide, in the crux of the wall.
Right in that corner, right there, or right
in that corner, and just stay silent.
Okay. They're still kind of looking around, but they're really more worried about someone else. Like they heard enough footsteps that they already think it's upon them, so they're just kind of like waiting for it, but like waiting for a giant fist to punch them or something. And but you do hear someone coming down the hallway, and they remember it's pretty low light in here, especially inside the cells. Like you aren't going to see much if you're just looking in, and it's being obscured by the ambient light. So you see the guy kind of basically poke his head in, and he does look your direction, but it's dark enough and you're in a dark enough corner that he doesn't see you, and the breathing is basically covering up any of your breathing that's happening.
Okay.
And because he's clomping pretty loud, and as soon as he does that, basically anyone in the jail that he's near or this cellar that he's near is going to breathe a lot harder. So you're kind of covered there. But he is making his way down the hallway to kind of like see if there are any problems.
Okay. So so Rissian waits till they're sort of past, and then he sneaks out again. And even though I'm afraid to do this, continues to try and go down the hallway.
So you're going towards the entrance again?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do another move silently check. Oh, fantastic.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you like glide there basically, plus 9. Yeah, you basically don't make a step. You do the really awesome technique, like cat technique that ninjas do, where they imagine their feet are like stuck to the ground, kind of. So it's basically you peel away instead of like lifting and stomping, but you just pull it off entirely as if you'd just been doing this all your life, and you make it to the entrance, and it is a light wooden door, not a heavy wooden door. No lock on it, but it basically seems to be a cellar door. It's just something that isn't heavily guarded except for by men.
Okay, well then, sort of, there might be people beyond the store. Well, I sort of crack it open and try to survey what I can, see what I can see
Okay.
about the room beyond.
Well, it's much right as you do that. It's no like great change in light, but it is a little bit lighter, and you see a staircase that's about 10 feet away from the doorway where you're at. That seems to curl a little bit upward, and it's not stone; it's made of wood. So you're obviously in a cellar. It's just they have reappropriated it, or whomever has reappropriated this for said thing. So you don't see anyone in there. In fact, it's too small for you to be mistaken at this point.
Okay, so then I open the door and start climbing the staircase.
Okay, one more move silently check.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, you do sneak up the stairs pretty well, kind of back against the outside wall so you can catch anyone as quick as possible and not be blindsided by them. And you get to, it's just one level, you get to the top of it, no door, just kind of it reaches up through a diagonal kind of space, and it leads into kind of a bigger room that seems as if it's been, you're under a tree, basically. Like you're inside of a tree at this point. So you do see a little bit more as if, like I imagine the way a hippie would be in WoW or a druid would be in WoW. It seems as if a druid lives here. If player knowledge, you would imagine this is a druid.
Okay. Um, anyone about beyond? Or do
Not
I
that you,
keep?
you don't see any movement, but I mean it's not impossible, but you just don't see any movement.
Well, okay, so then maybe do a listen check to try and hear if there's anything going on.
Sure, you actually do hear towards the. It's a big kind of a circular area that's a little ovate, and you're at one end of the oval, and at the other end, you can see and hear. It seems like bubbling, as if something's cooking or stewing or something in that context. And not much else. You do hear the creak of this giant tree, kind of as the wind blows through it, and another clue there. And you also hear wind.
Okay, so I'm gonna continue down the hallway, moving silently.
Okay. And okay, so you're actually past the hallway. If you've gone up the stairs, you're literally opening up into this big room. So if you walk out, you're in this giant main hold, I guess you could say. And it
Okay, yeah,
seems
well, I move out. I move out into the hold then.
okay. And so as you're moving through, you do notice that the floor is. It seems like a giant petrified stump at this point, and the walls are very well crafted on the inside, and you still see more of those tiny how do I want to put it, tiny mushrooms, the Bob Barker mushrooms, the Bob Barkers we'll call them. And they're lining the halls of this place. They seem to be growing up from like the stems of the tables and things like that, which strangely enough also seem to be growing from the floor. So everything here seems to be kind of running on itself.
Okay, and the entire room is sort of lit,
uh
and then in a way
yeah
that I couldn't really hide on like anywhere.
uh if you're at one end, the other person at the other end might have, like, I imagine, you might be crouching or something. The other person at the other end might need to make it past a few things in the minutia of this giant room, basically, because it's obviously someone's doing something, experimenting,
Okay,
basically
and there's
doing stuff here.
yeah, okay, and there's one doorway on the other
Uh,
end.
One, let's see. There are actually two and two windows. It's dusk right now, so you kind of see an orange glow coming from the windows, just nothing too bright.
Is there a way to get out of the windows?
They are big enough, but you might have to break the frames on them, like the cross frames in the inside.
Okay, so I have no. Okay, well, since I have no idea how far up I am, um I go to the doorway where the bubbling happens, and I again sort of um open it just a tad to see to survey what's inside.
Okay. As you do that, you actually see tons of kind of paling mushroom caps kind of boiling in a really thick fluid. It's real. It's something that you're not going to really know what it is at all, but it seems to be something that's not to eat.
Okay, is it outside or is it still in the tree somewhat?
It's inside. It's near a window. It seems that any like fume off seems to be going outside of the windows, being that there's not really much like glass here. It seems that the bottles that are and beakers that are being used in this sense are whatever alchemical tools that are being here seem to be the most valuable things to the normal world in this place.
Okay, so I deciding against my better judgment, Risky, I mean, looks into the nearest window to see to see how far down the window is.
Oh wait, go, say that one more time. Sorry, I feel like I caught part of it and didn't catch the other part.
Oh, sorry. So Rissian goes to the nearest window and looks to see how far down it is.
So the one like you did basically one nice curl in the staircase. So you where you really are is about half a story up. So it's like it's a where the like domicile has been built in this thing seems to be kind of in the same fashion as raised like those houses in Hawaii or anywhere that's near like a riverbank that floods sometimes. Basically, it's on risers a little bit, but it's not really. It's just the tree is tall and they started the floor about a half a story up.
Okay, so I try to silently break one of the frames.
So let's roll two things, and depending on how you do on both of them, we'll kind of decide what goes. So do a strength check and then a move silently check.
Okay.
I'm strength
Plus,
checking an escape artist, actually. Let's put it that way.
okay,
Okay.
10 and escape artist, which is 9. That's helpful.
And
19.
then, okay. So with you give it a nice yank. It's not that loud when you do. It's obvious it's not going to give that easy, but you do feel it kind of move and you realize that it's basically being held in by clamps. Like the window is two wood kind of L bits that or I want to say like skirts that go around this windowsill that's been cut out, and you can like unclip it and open it up. And it's really the escape artist skill that told you that. You were just like kind of yanked on it and instantly noticed these clips that instantly took all the stress when you yanked on it.
Okay.
So one more escape artist, just to make sure you do these well and quietly and don't like they are finicky. So you may like accidentally bend one and like make it hard to not just break the window.
16.
Very lucky. So it was right next to one. But it's that gambler's fallacy. But okay, so you clip all there's six, two on the sides and like one on each side and then two on the bottom, two on the top. And you basically pull this side of the window off and kind of put it near you on the ground there, and then basically push the other side out and start climbing out. And you do notice as you kind of peek out that it is dusk. It doesn't seem like there's too many people around, but they're not close enough to like really notice you. And someone would really have to be like looking at this place to like see someone climbing out of this tree window thing.
Okay. And So then I'm outside at this point, kind of like on a scaffolding or on some sort of
Well,
wooden
if you're,
walkway.
well, I'm envisioning you kind of peeking your head out of it now. But if you look down, the tree, it's a tree, obviously. But it's just kind of rounded all the way down. So it's like a bulbous bottom of this tree that was hollowed out, and you're about, if it's half a story up, you're really only about 10 feet above the ground.
Okay, so then I just jump out the window then.
Okay, so tumble check at this point, just to mitigate any confusion if there's a botch. Very
15.
nice. 15 plus 13. Okay, so you are a badass rogue. I should let everyone, the zero viewers know about that. But so you do a nice little tumble check, and as you're on the ground, you kind of feel that you kind of still smell that same dankness, but it seems to be at least moving now. It's not in the bottom of that cell, so you're obviously not. That's not the prevalent smell now. But you do notice it's still there, and it's kind of obviously not like that it lingered in your nose. It's just the air still smells like this, and it's a very humid forest that you're in. So,
Okay.
but go ahead. You're in kind of a small town, by the way. Just you can. That's how you can tell there's enough people here, but it, you don't see anything weird about it just yet.
Okay. Well, still, just given that I've apparently done something to warrant getting locked up in this small town. Um, I
Well, it's not the town that you passed out in, if we want to think of it that way.
okay. Well, so I move. I okay. So first, how crowded is the streets?
Um, in your view, if you just like at the first glance looking around, you can see about four people, but they're not. They're all doing their own things. Like two people are going, on a walk, carrying some stuff with them. You're not close enough to tell what it is, but so things like that. So basically, people are just going about their day, and the roads are separated enough that it's not like it's basically like how campsites are separated far enough so that people, you'd really have to be yelling and screaming to bother your neighbor.
Okay. Well, I sort of then, because I'm still worried about my stuff.
Right.
Um, I sort of sneak around the trees and tree and try to see if there's any other sort of entrances or windows.
Okay, so the two windows and the door are the ones that are on the scaffolding, but it does seem that because there is a like around where the actual door is, there's a couple of I guess you could say scaffoldings. It's really more of a ramp and a secondary level for someone to stand on, just like a balcony kind of with stairs up to it. That is kind of around the front, and it goes basically there's the door, and then a set of stairs on each side of it basically go up to kind of near the windows, but not in front of the windows. So basically, you dropped next to one of these little things. So if you wanted to climb up onto it, you'd eventually basically make it back around to the door. But on the other side of the house, you do see, or this tree, you do see kind of storage boxes and stuff like that.
Is there? I searched the storage boxes
Okay, so
to.
there's three of them there if you wanted to search them all. So I'd say roll three search checks.
Okay.
And then,
Search is 10.
okay. Okay, so the first thing you find is your stuff. And you do notice that there's much more valuable things. You were just a little bit more concerned about getting your gear back because whether or not you don't have your gear, you feel much more comfortable with it.
Okay, well, out of spite out of these people for apparently getting me drunk and dragging me off to some godforsaken prison, I take the more valuable stuff as well.
Okay, and so through that, you actually find a nice little short blade. It's actually only about an inch long, the blade itself, with a regular hilt on it, but it has a really mean little like curve hook to it. So it could be for fish, but it also could be for really sinister work. But it's a really nice blade. It doesn't look masterwork, but it looks like this is one of the most, this is one of the more solid tools you'll find around here. That's one thing. You do find another 30 gold in another pouch kind of in there. You find tinder, rations, and a few water skins, and that's about it. So say 3 water skins, 2 days of rations, and enough tinder to start 3 fires.
All right.
Sorry, I
And
rattled
then
those off
I
quickly, but...
search, and then I do another search check for the next one.
Oh no, that was okay. That's right. So then in the next one, you find a few like bits of clothing, like cloaks, nothing special, but basically things that might even allow you to blend in a bit here better.
Okay, so I take one of the cloaks then,
Okay.
And put it on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So as you're doing that, um, you actually you basically tie the front of the cloak or clip it there, or I guess I would say if you put the kind of knot through to hold it to your chest, someone pulls down the hood from behind you and basically grabs your shoulder and turns you around. They don't look threatening, but they're like, I got you. And
So
go ahead.
then I take the short blade then that I found, and I attempt to push him against the wall in sort of a threatening manner.
Okay, so you're gonna kind of grab him, turn him around, and throw him against the wall with your
Yeah,
knife.
no, and hold him against the wall with the knife against his throat.
Okay, so as you do that, he starts you put him against the wall. He wasn't really fighting. In fact, his hands were in a pretty non-threatening position. As you grab his shirt and throw him against the wall, hold your knife to him, giving him the stink eye, and he's kind of laughing, like, "Hey, man, I'm not here to bust you. I mean, you are busted. I got you. You're not that good, but you are good." And says, "Now, if you let me down, we don't have to fight, but I do have an opportunity for you."
So I first ask, where am I? Why did I end up in some sort of prison cell?
He said, I brought you here. He said, I put you in a situation I needed to know. And I needed to know how good you were because the name has been heard. Not far, but I don't need someone famous showing up where I need you if you are to take this job.
Okay, so then I let down the knife and then say, fine, what do you have in mind?
Well, one, could you at least give me 30 of that gold that you stole back for killing one of the guards I had down in that dungeon?
All right, I acquiesce. I give him 30 gold.
Okay, so at this point, I mean, you already had some other gold, but of the 2 things you looted of gold, he just wanted one of them back. And he said, that was truly impressive, although I do have one actual question, is why did you loot the dead man at the beginning?
I was trying to I was trying to find some way to escape. You don't put a man in prison and then don't expect him to find some sort of way out.
Yes, but you took his gold. You didn't take any tools.
I could use that gold to get out in case you had nefarious means.
Okay. That's all I needed to hear. I think you are set for the job, very much so. And I think the first thing I should point you to is he kind of points back up at the tree where you can still see those same mushrooms that are going. He says, you notice how we kind of use anything we can find in this bog to make things work here. Well, at this point, there is something that has been hoarded. And it's a resource we could most valuably use because it is ever abundant only from one source. But this source is being kind of misered by a newcomer in these lands. And what we need, or what I need mostly, because this guy seems to be kind of hinting that he is not running the town, but at least providing the most profitable or useful resource that they could need. And it ends up being light, and they grow their food basically on what the fungus produces. So there is one mushroom, or at least one sporulated pod that has been kind of where we have gotten, well, not kind of, exactly where we have gotten most of what we need from this place for this place, and it is now basically being held out. And within the next few months, we will basically be at our wits' end and have to either move, do something new, or try to change our ways, or try to make something else work, or even send people into civilization to get commoner supplies, basically. So, but he basically says, but we really just need your help.
And then Rissian says, sounds fair enough. I'll do the job. Where's the can you tell me more information on this miser character?
He says, gladly. Let's go back into my house, and I'll show you a few things of really what you need to know.
All right, and then I also give back the remaining 30 that I stole and apologize for taking their well-needed resources.
He holds his hand out and just basically, like in a kind of a refusal fashion, and just says, your apology is enough. I already took the 30 gold for the body disposal that I'm going to have for the guard you killed. I don't need the other 30. So it's basically, you didn't kill one guy, so you're doing good. And so he basically set up this entire thing to kind of last Starfighter you into stealing this thing for them, which is basically like a sporulated hard mushroom that you can break pieces off to grow something else. And it seems to be infinite because it's like you don't have to break off much at all. In fact, you can put dust into the ground to desporulate it and change its properties basically to grow it as something else, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
It is the all resource basically for these people. And so as he walks you into his house, you go back to the pot itself, and he says, I know it sounds disgusting, but we eat this. And he said, it is basically all the food we would need. And we're not very pleasure seeking as a people here. And it seems that the person who is misering basically any resource we could possibly have to keep ourselves healthy here is a pleasure seeker, and that seems to be the only thing he does. And they seem to basically be a very knowledge seeking, I guess you could say, but druidic knowledge. So basically knowledge of nature is kind of what this little tribe seems to kind of covet. You can kind of see that around with like you actually do see living like in the corners, the bushes and the shrubs that are kind of kept around as decoration. If you look close, they're actually young treants, and you can see like sleeping eyes and things like that on the stems of stuff. And
Okay.
so they seem very kind of nature oriented, but he basically says if you go to this place, it's very heavily guarded, and not even by sentient means. There's tons of, I guess you could say, traps, or basically ways to get caught where you won't be able to breathe after a short amount of time because of the like spores that are being put up into the air are so thick it will coat your lungs and kill you within a matter of minutes. And basically, to get there originally as a natural resource was difficult enough, but now this person has taken it deeper and deeper into said area and made it much harder to get to while he uses the resources for himself.
And then how far does this security system extend into around the perimeter?
Around there really are no other entrances other than the natural opening that was kind of created by a waterfall. It kind of made a standing pool right under a cave entrance that's kind of right there, and through that is kind of where the natural, you could say, natural dungeon kind of occurred. Basically through water and things like that flowing under this mountain. So if you at least there are no other known ways of getting into the mountain's depths to like get to this mushroom, basically. So if you,
Okay.
so I mean, with full disclosure, I haven't technically thought of one yet, but on your way there, I may think of one.
Okay.
But
Um,
okay. But if you had any questions for him, I guess.
well, so Rissian nodded and says, "Very well. Since you depend on this so much, I will gladly help you out. Which direction does this is this spore?"
Well, I will have what would be the equivalent of an Eastern Sherpa take you kind of toward the not the summit but the bottom of the mountain, and allow basically lead you to the place where we at least remember the entrance being. But if there may be the possibility that you guys would run into trouble on the way there, and you may have to make detours at least to avoid, imminent doom on the way there, because it isn't an easy journey. This is kind of why they've settled here and try to make things run on themselves so they don't have to worry about traveling, because traveling is so damn dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, understood. Yeah.
So it's about a 2.5 mile trip on its own to get to the summit of the mountain, and then once you're there, you'll kind of it'll be more of a complicated journey inside the mountain than it will be going.
All right. And where do I meet this Sherpa?
He is in town. Being that it's dusk, you probably want to wait until morning just to get the most dangerous animals that usually roam at night back into their hovels and things like that, just to get it to be a little bit safer. But you'll end up meeting him before you leave. In
All right.
fact, he'll be ready to leave as soon as you are in the morning.
All right. So I nod and all right. I suppose you guys have some sort of inn or something like that.
He says, not necessarily. Once again, we have no travelers. We normally we keep here. It was difficult for me to leave and find someone, but being that word came up that you were in another town, I basically brought you here. So you're welcome to sleep here. There are multiple sleeping quarters. Once again, we're simple. We don't necessarily care about privacy, so because none of us are worried about it. But if you do need privacy, there are, if you probably passed one of the rooms, but there is a bed to sleep in one of the dungeon cells down there, or basement.
Okay.
Basement.
Well then, Racine sort of nods, and privacy isn't necessary. I've slept in worse places than this.
Okay. He
Yeah.
says it's no problem. I have two. This is why I'd like not to even give this simple lifestyle up.
I don't blame you. And so then Rician sort of decides to go back, asks, so where are the dungeons from here?
The dungeons from here are towards the north. It's sort of a winding path, but um, being that a straight walk would take about 15 minutes if it were a mile, like at a regular medium pace. At a medium pace with this path, it might take about an hour and a half, just because there's a few things to traverse and things like that. So an hour and a half per mile. So it probably would take a half a day to get to the summit or the bottom of this mountain, I should say.
All right. Well, then I guess I better rest up for the day's journey then.
Okay. Well, now while you are sleeping, um, you don't like you don't notice this necessarily, but I'd like you as a I guess as a player to add uh, a like temporary +2 to your wisdom.
Okay.
The
I
actual
will make a note of
modifier,
that.
not the modifier, not the score. And so you will have this for a short amount of time during the day, but it's basically just an effect of the fumes, the spores and fumes being in your nose. It's basically exciting parts of your brain, basically, that aren't normally around.
Okay.
But okay. So as morning comes, it seems pretty normal around there. They seem to be all doing normal stuff and going about the same things they were yesterday. And you do notice that there is someone kind of getting things, moving things around and shuffling and schlepping outside.
All right. So I walk up and ask, "Are you the man I need to speak to get to the mountain?"
Yes, he is actually, and what he's really getting together is a couple of backpacks. He says, if you want to put some of your stuff in here, there is still room for it, but you just may need the rest of this stuff to go through the cave. And you find out that it's just climber's gear, a few more days' rations, a couple of whetstones, and more tinder, basically, so you can start as many fires and stuff as you need. He also seems to have given you a pouch full of looks like beads almost, but they're very like matte and flat colored, I guess I could say. And he says basically, if you find a water source that's in the dark, you can basically keep one of these in the water for 5 minutes, and to you and I, it would be like a dinosaur sponge, but it basically will grow you one of those small Bob Barker mushrooms that glows.
Okay. Well, I pretty much can keep everything on me. I want the weapons close, but I um
I mean, it's basically if you weren't already wearing a backpack, here's a backpack and some stuff. So if you even wanted to keep some stuff in said backpack, you're welcome to.
yeah. So I accept one of the backpacks and say, well, I am ready to go when you are.
Okay. And all right. He says, sounds just fine to me, and basically starts schlepping his backpack over his back and um, takes kind of a quick glance back at you and just starts walking. And it seems that he's really just saying, "Hey, pick up your backpack. It's time to go." So
Okay, so I pick up the backpack and start after him.
okay, and so this backpack is actually a little bit lighter than you would have expected. At least with all the metal and whetstones and stuff like that in there, it seemed not like magically. It just seems to be very well made. Like this, this town seems to be a really hardy town, being that they actually do things very well. So it doesn't seem that they would have any problem being on their own if they didn't have to deal with people like basically hoarding their resources and such. And
Yeah.
you can tell that basically by the quality of the pack that they gave you, just out of like pure, generosity, or I guess, how do I want to say that, opportunistic ally in that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, you guys kind of start making your trek. It's morning, so you do notice that there's a very nice light kind of filtering through most of the treetops and things like that. The treetops do not break where you are right now, and it's a very very dense forest as far as it goes. Nothing that you can't like see 150 feet in front of you, but it's still pretty dense. Like you don't have to squeeze through trees, but if you put both your arms out, you may be able to touch two trees at once. And so as you guys are kind of making it forward, the Sherpa kind of asks you, so did he put you through the same tests he puts everyone through?
You mean he does that to everyone?
Well, you did see the dead guys down there, right? Not everyone makes it out.
Wow. That's
And I
that's
mean,
extreme.
I guess a little bit, but I mean, you seem to make it out just fine. And it's not too often that people don't make it out, but I mean, he does pay those guards pretty well, so they're okay with clipping somebody if they absolutely need to.
And they manage to how did they come across that tree in the first place?
Uh, this is a couple generations old from what I can tell. I actually came from a smaller town outside of the forest. I grew up on farmland entirely, but realistically, this is a few generations deep as far as I can tell. So, whoever did, they found this, they found all these trees because it seems like most of the trees kind of have, or at least towards the village, have that plumper bottom. So they used the biggest, oldest trees as houses. And so it's basically people who were nomadic or something of this sort, or at least had to form an exodus out of somewhere, decided this was the place to hold up because at least in this small area is safe enough and surrounded by a lot of danger, at least a lot of danger of travel. So
Oh well, fine work. Paranoid.
yeah,
He was lucky he didn't make it out. He didn't make it out with his throat cut after scaring me like that.
yeah, no kidding. And he says, yeah, I saw that actually. He's he's a bit of a strange one. He hasn't really acted much different to anyone else. All right, so it's basically how he treats everyone, and it seems to be not necessarily a character flaw, but ends up being to his credit because he's half the reason this place is still alive, and half the reason that the miser, as some of us call him, seems to be at least at bay. He seems to be able to get enough of what we need out of him for the time being, but that's why he's sending you on this mission so we don't have to worry about it anymore.
Do you know much about this miser figure?
Uh, haven't seen him. I've only heard about him, and knowing that there have been some drops in the quality of life here, it is at least a generally good idea to assume that because you seem we do things well enough here on our own that any any disruption would have been an artificial outside factor. It couldn't have been something from within our own tribe, being, or I guess grouping, being that none of us seem to have any problems doing this stuff on our own as long as we have the raw materials we need.
Aye, yes. Uh, my only concern is if this miser is as half as clever as your leader back there. This is going to be quite the extraction mission.
I can imagine. I would call myself something close to snaky, but I killed both of the guards he had. I did not spare any silence, that's for sure. Um, I'm not meant to be quiet, and I'm really not the person for this. But I imagine that someone who is sneaky, at the very least, is, because whether or not you're intelligent enough or wise enough or quick enough, it will basically be whether or not the mountain takes you. Because the man who has been taking this stuff from us, or who has been misering it out to us, is at least able to traverse the mountain well enough to get far away from us, or at least far enough that we can't get to him.
It looks like that.
So it's, if you want to say clever, maybe it may just be that he's quicker than anyone around.
Well, in any case, do you know have you been through these woods often? Do you know where there's been sightings of traps or anything like that?
And nothing too strange. There are, you could call it, I don't know if you actually know what this is in player knowledge. We do have patches of what resembles slip sand in some places, but you'll see a small glimmer from it. And there are also just poisonous things in the jungle that are around. Or I guess you could say jungle forest, very verdant place. There are small things that might poison you, or at least give you a pretty bad stab, I guess you could say, just being, growing spikes out of, plants that are not of normal forestry, basically. So it's basically you're in a strange place that you may run into some poisonous stuff for some new foliage that is not so much, it may be dangerous as well as cool looking.
Sounds bearable enough.
And yeah, nothing like the Princess Bride really, but there's some stuff to deal with.
Yeah.
And there are animals in the forest that try to come out during the day. They usually have a much better time of it at night, and anyone that's not basically in a domicile when the sun is completely over the horizon is almost at the play. Like it's basically just a plaything to the beasts that run around here at night.
Well, how useful are you in battle?
That's basically my forte. As I kind of was telling you before, I'm not a sneaky guy. I truly, truly just am good at killing,
All
at
right.
least from my look.
Well, if you have experience with these beasts, then we should have no trouble then dealing with them.
Hopefully, I haven't faced one face to face, but I have been up in the trees and dropped alchemical bombs. I should mention that we did have a sorcerer and an alchemist in our ranks at one point, but both were killed when we tried to send parties into the mountain beforehand. I once went the furthest in, noticing that it seems to get a little bit tighter as you go down as far as fit, but it is still traversable. And he says, I'm trying to remember what I was thinking here. So he basically says the sorcerers and alchemists allowed them to have the technology to go in beforehand, but being that they're dead now, they're not really sure how to reproduce that kind of stuff. So the most he can give you is the knowledge that once he got once he got as far as he did, he realized it would just be kind of a game of crawling, and hopefully not for long.
All right. Well, it sounds traversable enough.
And so as you kind of are passing, we'll say that conversation kind of took a good hour. So you've been walking for a little bit, not tired at all, but you do kind of notice that the wind has kind of stopped. So you are starting to hear a little bit more of the wildlife running around. And so you do hear small animals and things like that. And you also hear things hunting as well. Your nice big old pounces and snarls in certain places. Nothing near you just yet, but you do kind of want to be on the lookout for things that may be thinking you're a delicious snack.
Okay, and sort of in preparation, I take the broadsword that I had taken off the guard
Okay,
and
and
sort of
just
and
wheel.
just sort of I have it drawn ready.
Okay, so you're kind of doing the patrol walk with a sword in your hand.
Yeah.
Okay, and 1 second. Hold on, I'm trying to pull something up. So, uh,
And yeah, and what's the what's the role for that
to
for the broadsword?
for the broadsword, let me pull that up really quick. Okay, so it's a 1d6 broadsword, and it's it's technically a bludgeoning weapon, but it's just a thick sword. So technically, it'll slice something that's much larger than you, or at least that's what it'll end up effectively doing. But anyone that's about your size, like it'll, if you swing it hard enough, it'll dent a helmet and crack someone's head, basically.
Okay.
And so let me pull something up really quick. There we go. And oh, I really wish we could find. I'm just trying to find the book that I need. I have like 3 of them open, and I can't tell if I'm in the right one. And it's Monster Manual 3. It is 3. So, ridiculous. But okay, come on. Okay, it is not in Monster Manual 3. Oh, it's in Monster Manual 3.5. Okay. Sorry for the delay, no one. I mean, at least just Robert. But QRS. Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right. So let's go ahead and keep moving through the forest now that I've found things. And okay, so go ahead and actually do a couple of move silently checks just so that you can get a good listen. So do a move silently check and then a listen check, actually.
Okay. Yeah. So 12 for the first move silently check.
Okay.
And then for the listen check, I got a 20.
Very nice. Okay. So here's the weird thing. Every time you kind of take a moment to do that, to kind of like move a little quieter and take a listen, you hear something it's seeming like it's trying to walk at the same pace you are. So like anytime you stop, it doesn't take another step.
Well, okay, so signal the um, I signal the Sherpa to pause, and then I roll another listen check, just sort of taking one step forward to try and ascertain the direction.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I got 23 for that.
Okay, so you can designate or at least know that it's to your back and to your right. So between 6 o'clock and 3 o'clock.
So I sort of I signal I signal my compatriots that the general direction of some kind of creature. I'm not sure what it is, um, and sort sort of turn and swords drawn, step forward, kind of not so much that I'm in range, but that maybe it lures whatever it is out.
Okay. And okay. So you don't see anything and you don't really hear anything when you do that, but you do feel that something is like looking right at you and can see you and is kind of like is not drawing you out, but is just watching so far. So it knows that you're trying to draw it out and it isn't going to respond. Basically,
Okay.
it's not ready to be near you.
Well, then I sort of I I call out to it like we know you're there, and then sort of just start stalking, not towards it, but back up the path with sort of looking back over my shoulder.
Okay. As you do that, you do hear kind of a very like quick, brief, I guess I should say, rustle. So it's kind of like a, or like I guess you could say a wind movement, and you still don't see anything just yet, but it is. You did hear a weird like wind movement kind of over from that direction as you start walking over that way.
Okay, and so then I turn to the Sherpa and it's like, we better watch out from here on out.
And he says, "Agreed. I don't even know what you're hearing, but I mean, there's some nasty stuff out here, so I wouldn't doubt you.
And what kind of creature, I ask, it is clever enough to follow your movements?
Uh, there's very many a beast. Most of them are either cats or canines of prey. No giant birds here. We don't have any raptor in population, so there are no competition for food for birds around here. But mostly things all the way from dire wolves, which are the least common, or the most rare, I should say, being that this isn't a normal forest, all the way to displacer beasts. So it could be anything in between those.
All right, no highwaymen make it out here, I assume?
Well, it's not exactly the place you'd want to travel. This is why we don't have that sort of thing going on. Like
Okay.
why we don't have an inn in the town and things like that. This is what makes it hard to traverse. It's basically any army or even battalion that tried to come through would have to deal with all of this and suffer great casualties, being a big loud entity coming through the forest. While you know they'd suffer great casualties and wouldn't be a strong fighting force by the time they got to us.
You can just never be sure with smaller, more opportunistic thieves.
Absolutely. So there may be, but we haven't dealt too much with them, being that most of us don't try to hang out here or even travel out here.
Okay, I nod and then sort of point forward cautiously and continue forward.
Okay. And so as you do notice, being that this thing knows that you know it's there, you can't necessarily pinpoint it as you're walking where the sound is coming from, but it is trying to step at the same time you're stepping and isn't doing a terrible job of it, but you do hear some inconsistencies, and it kind of almost is like your step is being echoed.
All right. Yeah. So continuing forward. Yeah. What happens sort of soon happens after that because
Okay, so at this point, you don't really, you don't really hear any inconsistencies in that, but you do start hearing some kind of running, and it doesn't sound like human running or anything like that, but it seems that two pairs of claws, it seems like, are moving in your direction, not towards you, but it seems as if they might cross your guy's path.
okay. So I sort of stop and assuming that it's the whatever creature was tailing us, sort of pull the pull the Sherpa back a few feet and to directly behind.
Okay.
So kind of giving whatever it is a broad entrance if it so charges across the path.
Okay, so at that point, as you guys kind of like reach out or, kind of go to the side of this little pathway that you're walking along or traversing along, you see two really strange beasts that don't seem to have faces, but are, uh, it's like a clawed reptile that seems to have no face, but a bit of a kind of a few squid tentacles coming from a long elongated kind of shovel flat face, if that makes sense. So it's basically like it kind of looks like a nasty Cthulhu crossed with Jar Jar Binks with no eyes, actually. And it's two of them. They're making like a weird, like muffled pig squealing sound as they're running down this path. and they're both spraying something out of one of the holes that's in their face. Not an eye, it seems. It looks like eyes when they're not doing this, but when they do, it seems to be spraying a very thick acidic substance onto like the tops of the trees, and you start seeing branches kind of fall behind them with a bunch of little birds, and then every little 20-foot run that they do, they go back and eat up the birds that are on the ground that are kind of already kind of put in this stomach acid or whatever the hell they're spraying out of it.
And so I turn to the Sherpa and ask, "You have any ranged weapons or um,
He pulls.
explosives on you?"
He starts kind of like swinging a sling, or I guess twirling a sling around with a rock he just picked up off the ground. He goes, "Yeah, this is as ranged as I'm gonna get." And he
All right.
basically is like kind of looking at you like, "Are we just gonna like kill these things?"
Well, so are these creatures? Do they notice our presence or?
No, no, they're trying to just eat. They're just seem like a crazy type of animal that like loudly sprays acid on the tree. Just blitzkriegs birds and eats them. And
Okay, so I
seems to
say
be
I sort of shake my head, but sort of angle us um, in a proximity where hopefully we don't get noticed. So
okay. So I mean, you guys are kind of on the side of the road. They don't have eyes, so they're not going to see you. If anything, they might smell you or hear you, but they're basically running off smell from birds and trees. So basically, they're running in the direction they know there are no trees in front of them, and spraying upwards because they kind of know that's where the smell of birds is coming from. So
okay,
and the closer you kind of get, or they kind of get to you, you see that they are definitely a type of reptile. It just seems almost as if it was like some strangely evolved, like, strange offshoot of the evolutionary chain that dealt with no light for a long time and things like that. So it's basically just a really strangely evolved raptor type thing.
okay. So yeah, we kind of move. Yeah, so we silently move past them.
Okay. Um, so as you're kind of moving past them, they are going kind of a little quickly. I would say they're moving at about a 40-foot movement speed comparatively to your 30, and they're actually kind of booking it and moving backwards pretty quickly. I guess reconnoitering the things that they sprayed much more quickly and much more quickly than they're running down, and every time they kind of come back, they do seem to notice you a little bit. Not like a great amount, but they do seem to notice you, and they don't know if you're food or not, but they do seem a little bit curious.
Okay, well, yeah, so we're just so still foreboding, yeah. So sort of try to get distance between them and ourselves.
Yes, and so I'd say, yeah, I would do that just because I mean, if you move silently, they won't be able to hear you, but if you don't move at all, they will be able to smell you.
Do I need to do a check for that, or is that
Yeah, that's what I was basically saying. Like, if you're going to, I would move silently. Okay, so they know you're there. Let me do my D100 really quick to see kind of how 61. Okay, so it's not that bad. You basically just don't move silently, and you kind of step pretty heartily and break a nice big twig under your foot. And at that point, you do hear kind of a little bit of like a pig squeal, muffled pig squeal coming from behind you. And it's basically the two things kind of noticing your direction. And um, they don't seem like they're ready to spray any of that acid shit again, but they might be in a round or two. So I would say start rolling initiative at this point,
okay?
and I will roll an initiative for our buddy here. Okay. Okay. And then okay. So you're first, then one of these weird reptiles, then our buddy, our Sherpa Steve, we'll call him, and then your then our second second little weird acid spraying reptile. So go ahead and make your first move. You're about 20 feet away from them at this point.
Okay. Well, is it possible to move silently away?
From them right now, I guess
Yeah.
you could technically distract them or redirect where they're going, but they're kind of running right at you since you just made a nice big snap, and they already kind of smell food in this direction.
Okay, so well, in that case, are there any rocks nearby?
Uh, yeah, there's a few rocks. They're usually just kind of rustling up against or nestling up against trees. Most of the
Okay,
trees
so
on the
I grab the nearest rock and lob it at one of at the nearest one.
okay, so go ahead and roll your dex check. All right, you got
19.
a 19. So with a 19, you basically hit one of it right in the top of its shovel face, like right below its weird nozzles for this acid, and it just like shakes its head and makes this like giant squealing sound, and the other one stops and kind of looks back at it like, "What's up?" And because it didn't really hear the rock hit it, it just heard this thing start squealing. So they're both a little bit focused on that, but they're about in a second or two they're going to be ready to run in this direction again. So it was basically just a quick distraction. But
Okay.
you did do. Hold on, let's find out. You did do a point of damage to it. So yeah, nice little dent on this weird shovel face reptile's face.
Okay, so
Oh wait, it's actually the other one's.
yeah.
It's the other one's turn at this point. So it's just gonna run blindly still in your direction, or at least the direction it originally chose. It does move pretty quickly, so it's not gonna make an attack because it doesn't know yet. It might just run the fuck into you. But so if you wanted to make a dex check or a tumble check, that would probably be the best thing, just because it's going to be kind of an opportunity to dodge because you just know see this thing blindly running at you.
Okay, well, should I roll both or should I
I
choose
mean,
whichever's highest?
technically, your tumble check is informed by your dexterity, so go ahead and just roll the tumble check.
27.
Absolutely. So you basically just do a nice quick step out from the side, kind of fall on your back and do like a back somersault to your feet and are well out of the way. This thing just keeps barreling and like squealing like a deranged like pig monster thing, and just runs into a tree pretty hardcore. Kind of crumples up against it and gets back up and shakes its head off. And it also it takes 3 points of damage. So there's now one that's like kind of recovering from being hit by a rock, and another one's recovering by hitting a tree. So our sling going guy is gonna throw out a little sling bullet at an 11. I don't know. That's not gonna hit. So he doesn't hit. He kind of like lands the rock near them, but near the original the one that only took a point of damage, but it is now that one's turn, and he is going to turn around and make a charge at where the rock dropped. So give it 1 second, see how well he does. Just gonna give him a. Okay, he doesn't do too bad. So he basically goes for a while and doesn't, and feels like he's past past where this thing, this rock dropped. So it kind of like turns around and turns back in the direction it came, but doesn't start running. So it is now your turn again.
Okay. Can I do a sneak attack on the one that I sidestepped?
Uh,
Since it can't really
yeah,
see me.
yes, actually.
So what rolls would that be?
It'd just be an attack roll. It just depends on what attack you'd use. And then you add a d6 to it as sneak attack.
Okay. Well, I already have the broadsword out, so I'll just use the broadsword there. So plus. So roll plus so roll for.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're going to use the broadsword, go ahead and roll for the broadsword. So plus your strength bonus, I think? No, you wouldn't get that technically. It would be. Oh, no, you would. It'd be plus your strength bonus. So go ahead and roll plus your strength.
Okay.
Okay.
6.
You swing and it hits the ground and kind of makes a thump, and but right in front of it. So you're able to kind of be ready again, but it definitely heard that, and you didn't hit it. So. And okay, yeah, and it's actually the other one's. No, it is this one's turn. So
Yeah.
it's going to make an attack. I just need to go get back up to this monster that I was looking at. There you are. So it's going to make an attack. It's actually pretty good. What's your armor class right at the moment?
19.
Okay, it totally doesn't. It tries to like reach up one of its claws like it's an emu trying to gut you, and just totally misses. It's once again no sight equals no depth perception, so it doesn't really know how far it is away from you, and it just misses entirely. And so then it is our other guy's turn, and he's actually going to run up and give this thing a pretty good whack with a mace that he's been carrying around. It's a little bit smaller, so it's like a billy club, but he seems to know how to use it. So it's a 10. He also misses, but he basically swipes next to it, so that thing is going to try to attack him now, too. He might get hit. Not hit at all. Man, they are rolling terribly. So he basically swings. The other thing tries to swipe at him, and everyone's dodging everyone's attacks. So go ahead, Robert.
Okay. So that one that I missed, is me and the Sherpa between, basically on flanking it on both sides?
The one that
Or
you.
is the Sherpa on the other one?
So he's on the other one. You're on the one that ran into the tree.
Okay, so I basically try and go for it again.
Okay, so just a basic attack. Go for it.
$11.
Okay, so you also don't hit it, so it's going to make a roll as well. Okay, it botches. So it literally falls on its ass just trying to reach out with its claw, and let me see if it takes any damage here. That is so ridiculous. God damn it.
Pretty slippery path.
Yeah, absolutely. And on a D100, it got an 11. So it literally. So I'm gonna say that it puts it like as it does a swipe, it swipes its own leg and seems to do some damage to its other leg. And let's see. Let's use another. Okay, so it does another 4 damage, and it's on the ground and kind of squealing a little bit, not happy. It's just like, this is the worst time. I was just eating some birds, and now I am on the ground with something fighting me, I think, but I couldn't tell you. And so it's a little bit freaked out at the moment. Like, is it just me? Is it just me just squirting myself and slashing myself? And so when So basically, when it does that, the other guy makes another swipe at his crazy beast, and rolling the dice. Okay, no, that's the wrong one. That's D100. Should have been a D20. Come on, my bad. 17. Okay, absolutely hits and is gonna do a D6 plus 3. So this one has taken about, yeah, it's taken 4 points of damage at this point, and the other one has taken about, the other one,
7 should be, right?
yeah, 7. Okay, so there, that one's getting a little bit low, but not crazy low, so you may want to keep attacking it. But first, let me get the other attack in. 1 second. On our Sherpa buddy. Wow, they're just doing terribly. Okay, so these blind things keep missing, but you'd think that their improved hearing would help them, but apparently not. They're deaf as shit too. So go ahead and
Well,
make your attack or whatever you'd like to do.
well, yeah. So since it's on the ground, I'm just gonna
It's
go
flat
for
footed.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you absolutely hit it. You basically kind of go down to the ground and do a nice swipe at its head, and you don't even need to be on both feet. You can basically be on a knee. Very nice. I do, and yeah, it's no plus for the broadsword. So it's pretty badly wounded, not dead yet, but it's gonna take a half a turn to get up. So basically, it's gonna get up as a minor action in its next turn, and so then at that point, it's going to try to just run after it takes its minor action to get up. So it's going to try to run towards you because it's losing its mind now. It actually is being attacked by something. It just doesn't know what to do anymore, since it seems that its attacks are only going to hurt itself. So, um,
Okay.
at this point, you can make a dodge if you'd like.
Okay.
Let me-
Yes, I will do a tumble check on that.
all right.
Plus 13.
That's pretty nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Well, I basically have to hit a 1 for it to fail. So.
Yeah, basically. So if you so as you do kind of like fall to the side and do a nice somewhat graceful tumble, you basically fall onto your side and let your put your head down and let your body roll over your shoulders basically. And you are out of the way of this thing, but it's now kind of running towards our other pair. And at this point, I'm going to let our guy make his roll during the time when the other guys or the other creepy monsters running at him. And actually, that's the wrong one. It's not 16. It's a 10. So, being that the thing is now on the ground and the one that he's trying to hit, it does have a pretty flat foot. And he does hit it again. So, do another d6, do some damage on her. And only 1 damage. So he basically just pops it once, and it's still not doing as bad as our other guy. But he is. Oh, the other thing is going to attack him first. Hold on. So our second monster is going to attack our Sherpa, and it does hit him pretty hard. So let me, or at least pretty solidly. And oh, only does a point of damage on him. So basically, kind of nicks him across the face there. And so if you would like to go again to try to stop our barreling monster towards our buddy, go ahead. You might have to. Do you have any
What
range?
can I do? Like, can I? Would I be in range for sort of like a leap at this guy?
You're about 10 feet away, so probably not. Do you have any ranged attacks? I haven't actually checked your sheet.
No, I don't have any. I
We
don't have any ranged weapons. So
we didn't get you a crossbow or anything. Okay, so yeah, so you might have to make a run for it, and he may just get knocked down and probably take a point of damage or two.
well, so like I kind of want to run at it and try to see if I can't tackle this thing to the ground.
Okay, so you start to make your run at it, and he kind of hears a bunch of things barreling towards him, so he turns around and he kind of tries to get out of the way by ducking or getting as low to the ground as possible, but this thing probably is still going to step on him, and he may may take some damage, but it's just running, and although it is running towards some squealing from the original monster, so it may make a leap, but couldn't say so far. So do you want to try to keep running at it, or
Um, yeah,
okay?
just yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and let's make a let's do two tumble checks to see if you can gracefully get there and possibly knock one of these things legs out. That first
32.
that first one's fantastic. You basically run past a tree, put your leg or put your foot up on the tree, and launch yourself like in a very good forward direction and gain a good 5 feet on it. And go ahead and fantastic. So you basically do that, and as you're coming down, you do a really good slide all the way through, and go ahead and make a strength check, basically an attack. Okay, and so your attack hits pretty well. Go ahead and roll damage for it.
And then this would be
It'd
would
probably
this
be
be
either your fist or your sword.
okay? So I will just do I'll just do the sword because my fist isn't going to be.
Okay, and okay, so you basically take off one of its legs as you do that. So you slide right next to it and swing your sword as you're sliding by it and pop off one of its legs, and you end up sliding pretty close, but you don't hit the party, or I guess the other party that's going on over there, the two guys fighting the monster and your Sherpa. So there's now a squealing monster on the ground, writhing around and shooting blood out of its leg, and there's another one that's still on the ground being like swatted and punched by your Sherpa.
Okay.
And okay, so it is now the turn of the thing that you got on the ground. He's close enough to you, so he's going to make a severely penalized attack. Give me 1 second. Okay, so he does not hit you, but he's swinging at you pretty hard. And let's make a roll for our Sherpa. Okay, so he swings with his mace and hits the guy one more time. This may put him down. Yeah, he swings it pretty hard and hits him right at the jawbone, like where his weird shovel head ends, and kind of seems to fold his head in on itself, or at least it seems to flatten his head to the ground. So you have one dead and the other one writhing around and not really able to attack, or at least effectively. So go ahead and do your thing if you'd like.
Okay. So yeah. So I'm just gonna try it. Yeah. Just try and kill it.
All right. So go ahead and I guess make your roll. I guess it'd be just a strength roll. Oh yeah. So go ahead and roll damage. Okay. Yeah, you have definitely killed it. So you basically take the broadsword and kind of hit it right on the head, and it just doesn't stick, but it puts a pretty good dent in the head, and this thing is not moving around anymore and seems to be letting out whatever breath is able to release from whatever freaking hole this thing has. And yeah, you guys have basically killed these two things and are both like breathing very heavily and kind of like, Jesus Christ, these things are insane. And he just basically said, see, this is why most people don't come here. We have crazy acid shooting weird reptile things that don't seem to show up anywhere else but here. So uh, basically he says, if you'd like to move on, I'd absolutely like to get away from these things because this acid fucking stinks.
Yes, and Rician agrees. I agree. Whatever is causing these things to pop out is needs to be stopped.
These things naturally really live here. It's just this is the nature of this forest. It's as you saw, that mushroom spore seems to grow lots of different things, which in turn change species to at least adapt to work with these things. So it seems that these are animals that have grown accustomed to this area that were originally more recognizable species.
Well, in any case, let's get going.
Yes, he says absolutely. So you guys start kind of trekking away, and as you probably get like a good 100 yards down, you hear another one of those whooshes, and as you take a look back, you can kind of see in the place where you had murdered these two things, kind of a silhouette of a strange, like thin, panther-like beast that kind of just stays there for a moment and then runs out into the forest. So it was only enough to see a silhouette, and it kind of runs away. So
Okay.
your
Well,
not in your direction, but it didn't want to be seen for very long. But it looked like it was there to eat whatever you had basically pummeled to death.
okay. Well, yeah. So I nod back and then continue going up the road. Then,
Okay, is that, and as I said, there's not necessarily a road, but
well, path. Yeah.
so go ahead and do a few search checks just in case you see any of the things he had spoke of, like natural problems and things like that to get through.
And search is 10. Okay.
13.
13.
Okay, so you do notice, like, kind of getting closer to some trees, that there are patches of what he has described as slip sand, basically just sand that you don't fall into it slowly, you fall quickly, and it's very difficult to get out of. Um, but you do see it kind of grouping around certain types of trees, and it seems that just the root formations around them seem to allow this sand to kind of rub against each other and become smooth enough for you to slip into. But you only notice a few of those, and they're kind of easy to spot. But if you you know, if your check is kind of horrendous, then you may have to deal with that a little bit.
Okay. Well, let's see how the next one goes then.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, yeah,
23. Okay.
you basically can see any of them in your immediate area, and you do still hear the steps that are kind of mirroring yours, but at this point it's been about 2 hours, so you probably only have an hour of travel to go. So it's still daytime, basically. You haven't hit noon yet, so it hasn't even gotten hot in this area. But it does seem to be the time of year when things are out. At least some things are out anyway to try to get mating or food. There's things like that going on. It's spring in this area, so it's a tough thing to try to keep animals from doing stuff. So.
All right. Well, here. So should I do another search check then?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead and make one more search check. Yeah, you're seeing all of this actually just fine. But you probably want to do some stop and listen checks just to make sure you don't have any more things following you or
Okay. Yeah.
anything
So
in your way.
I do a move. I'll do a move silently then. In that case,
Okay.
and 27. Okay. And roll 19.
19. Okay. Yeah, you do hear not anything new, but you do hear distinctly the same following that has kind of been happening. Um, it still seems to be keeping its distance, almost as if it's kind of like waiting for a good time to at least come closer. Like you can't tell from its following or its stalking if it's a fear that's keeping it from doing this, or at least just its game that it's playing.
Okay.
But
Well, just in case that it's fear, I sort of turn in its direction and just sort of yell to try and scare it off.
okay, yell goes off without a hitch, and you can't really tell if it's responded to it yet because you haven't seen it. You only seem to hear that in this nice, vast, quiet forest that it is still trying to keep a very set distance from you.
Okay.
And so you guys
Um,
are kind of getting near to the mountain at this point, and the Sherpa himself is kind of during conversation has been hinting at you that he is not going to be sticking around after you basically get into the you know, basically once you get into the actual dungeon, I guess we could call it.
Okay, that's fine. I nod and continue forward.
Okay. And is that, what kind of check is that? Is that one of your...
That's a search check just to make sure that there's nothing, no traps.
Okay. You're starting to notice that the thickness of the, and I guess size of the mushrooms and the fungus that's been growing on everything is starting to get a little bit bigger as you guys get towards this mountain. And it seems like the trees are all the same, but it's really the fungus that seems to be reacting more, or at least a little bit more healthy towards, or at least as you get closer to the mountain.
Okay.
So basically, you guys are probably about 20 minutes from it. And at this point, you do notice that the footsteps are kind of getting louder. This thing probably doesn't know that you guys are going into a cave or anything like that, but being at the foot of a mountain doesn't leave you too many places to run, basically. So it may be kind of inching along on you guys to try to gain some ground.
Okay, so in that case, then I do the same thing that I had done previously and sort of move the party onto the side of the road that the thing isn't.
Sorry, what
onto
was
the
that?
path.
Oh, okay.
I move the party onto the side of the path that the thing trailing us isn't,
Okay.
to
So
try
you
and
try to duck into the tree line, basically.
yeah.
Okay. So go ahead and do a tumble check and then a hide.
A 15 for that.
Okay. Very close. For anyone listening, it's basically 2 plus 13.
Yeah.
So he could have botched that, but 2 plus 13 still counts. It's like his worst day is still pretty good as the average person.
And then what was the other one?
Hide. Okay.
Dang it. Scratch
You
that
definitely
one.
don't hide. You're basically hiding in a same eye line that he can still see you. So you kind of notice this. It's painfully obvious. It's not something I can really botch further other than just being like directly out in light. But you could probably try to attempt to tumble and hide somewhere else, but this thing is kind of starting to move up on you. But you can start to move towards the cave because it may not want to be in an enclosed space, basically.
Okay, well, yeah. So I continue. We'll continue moving forward then. Just sort of keep casting my gaze in its general direction every few footsteps.
Okay. You do, at least down the pathway that you guys have taken, you do see at least some kind of small entity. You're not going to be able to tell what it is because it's so shrouded in shadow at this point. But you do notice at least something's there. But it's not going to try to get any closer to you. It has a pretty good sense of if you can see it or not, basically.
Okay, well, we dealt with two lizard people things, so
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
uh, we keep on. So we just basically keep on marching down the road. Though at this point, since it is getting so close, it might be good to do another search check for traps.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and do a search check just in case you're not going to move quickly into something you don't want to move into. Okay.
11.
So well, technically a botch. So you don't see anything because you're still kind of focused on looking out behind you, and you kind of trip on your own feet as you're trying to keep looking back. So as you do that, you're basically on the ground, and your first thought is, I just need to get up and get moving, because you're kind of assuming that this thing, if you make any mistakes, is going to start kind of descending upon you.
Yeah.
So at this point, it hasn't done it yet, but it is probably seconds away from doing it if you guys don't make some quick moves.
Well, I then do a tumble check
Okay.
to try and make sure that it doesn't happen.
Okay. And go ahead and make that. And 10 to 23. Okay, so you do make a tumble check. Are you making it towards the tree line?
I'm continue it kind of up toward continue up towards the path so that if it should pounce or something, because I'm assuming it's some kind of canine, if it's anything, that I sort of get the ability to I roll out of the way and then can attack it if need be.
Okay. Okay, so as you do that, your buddy follows you basically, and he's not like great at tumbling or anything, but he seems to be able to follow you pretty well, and he is basically able to achieve the same things you are, just not as gracefully. So he's kind of like tumbling and like actually tumbling, like truly falling around and falling over himself to get there, but he does make it the same, just not quietly. And as you guys do that, you basically notice that the thing on the road it's not on the road anymore, but you can see branches above the trees moving basically, and it seems to be above, or at least trying not to be on the road so you guys can't see it. So
Okay, well, this
so
is
it's
kind of
hiding.
scary then.
It's kind of hiding too, but we have no idea what reason it's hiding for just yet.
Okay, well, I continue moving forward then, because that shit's scary.
Yeah, it's not really letting enough on about itself. But okay, so you guys go ahead and move ahead. You're probably about 10 minutes away from the entrance to this natural dungeon. If you wanted to, the best thing to do, in my opinion, just because I'm gonna let it be bound by rules, is to move as silently as you can while you go, which probably will lead to a few more move silently checks than would have been search checks. But go ahead and make, I'd say, a move silently check and then a search check, or the other way around if you'd like.
Okay, 9.
Okay.
That one
So
was close.
was that your search, or?
I was a move silently.
Okay, so you move pretty damn silently. Your buddy is doing just fine as well. He seems to be taking cues from you on how to do it. He's not rolling that high for damn sure, but he is at least doing it effectively enough that he's not stepping any twigs. He's being observant. Okay, so go ahead and make a search check. Okay, and you are successfully navigating any of the places that seem to have slip sand or any of the strange plants that might, scratch you and leave you with some nasty poison. And you're doing actually quite well, as someone would expect a seasoned rogue to do, especially in most dangerous places as well. High perception, good decisions, things like that. So
Yeah.
at this point, you guys are kind of nearing the entrance of this place, and you haven't stopped hearing the footsteps. They just don't seem to be in the same place they used to, as if it's trying to kind of make a big circle around you and maybe flank you on one of your sides. You're not sure where it's going to be when you reach the entrance of this mountain, but it seems to be coming up to your right no matter which way you have to get to when you get there.
Okay. Well, yeah. So just kind of keep moving and kind of betting on getting there before it gets to us.
Absolutely. So at this point, you guys are nearing it. You actually can kind of see it a little bit further through the trees. It's probably about a good 100 feet or 150 feet from you guys. And you probably have to make it past like a good 7 or 8 trees before you made it there. And with the distance between the trees, that probably be about 7 or 8.
Okay.
And so yeah, at this point, not sure where the sound is. At this point, you're not really hearing it being this close to the place because it may be that it's trying to avoid getting stuck in a terrible scenario, but it's not entirely. You can't be entirely sure that's what's happening. But so you guys are kind of nearing it at this point. So is there any way you wanted to approach the cave, or did you just kind of want to make a bolt for it and try to get inside?
Um, well, once we get past the tree line, there shouldn't. I mean, that thing shouldn't really. If it's truly trying to conceal itself, it probably won't go past there. So, um, once we do reach the pool, I'm gonna try. Ressian's gonna try and sort of edge along it rather than sort of
Oh,
like run splashing into it.
so I guess a good way to describe this is it is a standing pool that and I guess a good way to explain it is these things kind of form naturally where it ends up naturally boring out a kind of a cave system, and usually the original pool is all that remains because it'll end up finding a way to drain the water. At least it ends up draining itself after it gets past most of the tougher or harder rock
Oh,
or
okay.
denser rock. So
So the
there's only
water's running
one.
along the cave bottom then.
Right, and the pool that remains is really only that pool. So you'll basically swim under a barrier, a natural barrier, and then when you come up on the other side, you'll be able to access the dry part of the cave system, basically. So it's
Okay.
almost an airlock kind of to this thing.
Well, then in that case, then just book it into the pool itself.
Okay, so a good 100-foot run. So are you guys just gonna make a run for it?
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
Might as well, and just in case. Okay, so as you make a run for it, you are hearing still the same like mimicking of the steps, but it seems to be much louder, as if it's trying to at least get to you guys from there. And so at this point, what I would like you to do is make a tumble check,
Alrighty. Um,
and then
that's my best skill.
yep, and then we'll make a swim. So you tumble just fine. So you basically do a nice gymnastic roll towards the water, and then go ahead and do a swim. Very nice. So you do a very quick dive into. So now I'm going to do. You do a very quick dive into and pop up on the other side. In fact, you didn't really have to like do two strokes to get under this thing. You were moving quickly enough, and your dive was clean enough that you were able to kind of dive, direct yourself, and then pop up on the other side of that barrier. And give me 1 second. We're going to roll some stuff for our buddy, our Sherpa buddy, just because he probably wants to get away from our fun monster too. He actually has a. Okay, he makes a pretty nice tumble check. He doesn't have much strength though, so. Okay, so he basically makes a tumble check, and so he gets into the water, but you see him kind of struggling under the barrier as he gets there, as if he's gotten caught on it, and he probably needs your help.
Okay. Then I try to help him. So would that be
I'd say do a swim check and then just a basic strength check to get him out of the water. Or get him unhooked, I guess you could say. So a swim check and then 2 strength checks.
okay? So I botched the swim check.
Okay, so you basically just do that thing where you like are about to jump in the pool, but are like, wait, no, you didn't botch it. You got a 4 plus 4.
Okay.
So you didn't botch it. So you basically you dive in, and you kind of didn't dive in correctly. So you have to make a few like really awkward swipes. And while you're doing that, you actually see some blood kind of forming under him and spreading as it does in water. Um, so go ahead and make another swim check just to get there a little quicker, I guess you could say. Okay, so
11.
you do get there. It's not clean, but you do get there, and go ahead and make a strength check to get him off of the rock. Okay, so you do pull him off the rock, but something else is kind of holding him there, it seems. So go ahead and make another strength check to see if you can get him away from this thing. Very nice. I am so glad you critted that. So you do a super big rip just away from, and go ahead and make a swim check, and I'll let you know what you win for critting that. Okay, so you do a really nice big rip. You put your foot kind of above where he was, where that barrier was, and do a really strong kick and kind of sweep you guys both up to the surface. And he was caught on his backpack under this thing, but what you notice as you get him, like, calmed down is that he literally had a displacer beast's tentacle, like claw tentacle, on his chest, and your powerful crit rip literally ripped one of its tentacles off. So
Okay.
he's got some superficial damage on him. At least it was trying to rip him back out of the water on the other side, but wasn't really able to hold up to Rissian's I guess arm wrestling acumen. But
That's fun.
yeah, so actually at that point, with that knowledge, I'd actually like to call it a chapter end for this one. But this is actually something I would like to continue on. Maybe
Oh yes, definitely.
I was going to
All right.
say on Friday. I know Ben's also available, so we may be able to somehow. I can tell him that your buddy is in a different place and you need to find him, so we can get him to try to find you towards this place, basically.
Okay. Well, yeah.
If he wants to, but other than that, we could probably do it just solo, regardless. Just because this is actually, I had the idea, I just didn't realize it was going to play out well enough. So awesome.
All right. Sounds good.
But yeah, man. Thanks for playing. Anyone who listened or is going to listen to this, thanks for listening, and hopefully we will see you within a week instead of 4. So, but other than that, have a good night and see you guys later.